Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Yoga of Deep Listening. Welcome if you've come from our sound ceremony trainings, or from forest path retreats and ceremonies, or from the Nature of Realization course. And if you're new here and new to me, then welcome. Very happy to begin this journey with you. So this course, it builds from certain foundational principles in meditation, in contemplative practice, in insight. And if you don't have some of those foundational building blocks, that's fine as well. Very welcome here. I find that the practice outlined here of listening is very accessible to everybody and anyone, and pretty quickly, rapidly, swiftly, effortlessly, you can find yourself with some very deep, profound insights and understandings. This course itself is a culmination of many years of sharing the wisdom of listening and being passionate about the exploration of this as it flowers in many of the world's wisdom traditions and religions, from Vedanta and Yoga, where they call it Shravana, to Sufism, Sama, Sikhism, Sunyai, in Christianity, like the Quakers call it, listening to the still, small voice of God. In Judaism, they have the Shama, and in the Australian Aboriginal peoples, they call it Dadiri. In some ways, wherever there is wisdom, wherever there is contemplation, there is listening. And that's something that I find very beautiful. I want to expand and elaborate upon this kind of unspoken tradition, this unseen philosophy, and formulate it into something that we can look at from multiple angles in a way that I've always searched for it in the scriptures, but I've never found it the way that I was hoping. So I'll present this path of listening as a whole spiritual practice that one may undertake without any need for dogma or belief in any sort of religious ideal, without any necessary accumulation or goal-oriented seeking, but as an immediate and spontaneous recognition of what this listening is, and how it is found some way all around the world, how it is always with you, how it has never left you, and what it points to, and those profound implications and understandings tied to that. For I find that today, with everything that's going on, with the news, with our phones, with our societies, with different countries, with political leaders and relationships and technology and all of these things in life and death, that it is always an apt time to look at one's mind. It's always an apt time to listen deeply, to look inside, to ask bigger questions about life. As such, the main text we will go through in the live calls is one that I wrote specifically for this course to help us navigate through different stages of listening and several stages towards resting in this listening itself, to see that it always refers to itself, that it is ever present, non-dual, and the essence of our experience of life. Since I was very young, I've always appreciated and admired the scriptures of the world, the sutra and tantra, the condensed, distilled forms of wisdom. So that's the way that I've written this text, because why not make a modern day Upanishad? Something that's always in the back of my mind. Why does nobody write like this anymore? I think it's a wonderful way of teaching, a wonderful way of condensing and distilling wisdom, and to pass it on like this. So in the course, we'll be going through the text, and hopefully I'll do my duty of expanding upon it so that we can get into the contemplation of it, into the contemplative way of being, to really, really simmer and submerge ourselves in listening these next 3 weeks. You may listen to these meditations as many times as you like, and wherever you like. When it comes to the pre-recorded meditations, if you are inside or if you're outside, wonderful. If you're out in nature, beautiful. If you have a city, that's wonderful too. If I recommend, if you're wearing headphones, to have one ear in, so the other ear is open to your environment. That way we can be paying attention to the real life events as they're moving, the sonic environment. If you're in a quiet room and there's not much sound, wonderful, listen to that. If you're out in nature and there's lots of sound, listen to that. Obviously, a calm environment is conducive to contemplative listening meditation, but we shouldn't make distractions out of sounds in a listening practice, because anything that arises is a part of the practice. So it's good to listen with a welcoming attitude that is free from attachment to how it should be or could be, but to be open, to be receptive, to be listening. Aside from the meditations given each week, there'll be playlists shared for the contemplative listening of composed music, pre-recorded music, of which you might like to choose one track a day to sit and simply listen wholeheartedly without precondition, without anticipation, without expectation, but simply for the sake of involvement, of absorption and appreciation of music. After all, that's what it was made for. I also encourage you today to begin a listening journal and to make your notes for these 3 weeks in that journal. The listening journal can follow prompts from the text that we go through, and at least once a week, I invite you to sit somewhere and note down everything that you hear, just one thing after another, everything you hear and everything you perceive in procession for 3 to 5 minutes, and allow yourself to write freely and intuitively and be tuned by your awareness with your environment. And sometimes it can be surprising to see the poetic quality of the verse, but it doesn't have to sound good or poetic. You just write one thing and then the next thing and the next thing. I hear a bird whistling in the tree and there is a response from the leaves as a car goes by, and you just continue on and on and on and don't stop and don't think about it either. So once a week, maintain this practice and also contribute within the listening journal. And so just as you are simply listening to me right now and understanding my words effortlessly, so the practice of listening should be simple and effortless. And when we refer this listening back upon itself intimately and contemplate it, it's found to be a direct means of meditation, practice, and realization. And it can move us seamlessly from the cushion or from our spiritual practice into the openness of everyday life. So you can think of these next 3 weeks like a dieta or a sadhana that you're undertaking, a focused, immersive inquiry into listening. And to begin with it, first thing when you wake up, bring your attention to your ears. And several times throughout the day, just listen to what is there without interpretation. And also the last thing you do before you go to bed, to let your mind be free and listen completely as you go to sleep. This listening, it's not something new. It's something that's always with you. So rather than beginning this course thinking that we are learning something new or adding some new information or finding something other than yourself here, I just want to remind you that we'll be turning around and resting backwards and into the essence of this aware listening presence that you are. This aware listening presence that you are. And that means that you already have everything that you need to begin. So my friends, let's begin.